before I turn it over to you, okay?
What quote?
Jack Kornfield quote in that story you sent me.
I don't know which quote it was. I'm looking right now.
When
All
we
right. So I believe that we are live right now. It just kicked us in live. I love how it does that sometimes. And we've just been sitting here having a lovely conversation. So come on in, everybody. Welcome. We're so glad to have you join us today because you could be anywhere on the World Wide Web. And we are honored that you are celebrating with us another episode today. I'd like to invite you to take a minute, click the love button, click the share button so that more people can enjoy this show with us today. My name is Jessica Dugas. I'm an intuitive mentor and energy healer.
And my name is Donna Brown, and I'm a holistic wellness practitioner. And this is The Breakthrough. It's the spiritual view for your soul and mind, where we dig deep on today's spiritual hot topics and inspire you with stories of these breakthrough moments that change our lives.
Yes, we do. And our guest today is the beautiful Betty Ann Tucker, a vegan lifestyle coach and blogger. She is going to be sharing with us about her breakthrough moment when she stepped outside of society's view of the norm and then the snowball effect of change that has occurred since then. I'm so excited about this show, Donna, because the last couple of episodes, we've kind of touched on this topic a little bit of how one breakthrough can lead to another, and these things just keep happening. So I'm excited to dive into this today. But first, we've got to get to our hot topics, and that means that it's time to bring on our panelists today. Today, we have the always beautiful Heather Clark, our declutter coach and consultant, helping us to make room in our lives for those breakthrough moments that we are experiencing. So welcome, Heather.
Woohoo!
Hello. I should probably unmute myself so I can talk to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are excited to have you on today. What do we have coming up for Hot Topics today, Donna?
Well, our hot topic today is on taking a break without guilt. So, this is kind of a good one, because how often do we need to take a break? Our body's telling us to take a break. We need this break, and we don't take this break.
Right.
So I want to read real quick a quote by Jack Kornfield, and I thought it was really kind of appropriate for our little hot topic. It says, when we get too caught up in the busyness of the world, we lose connection with one another and ourselves. So that's kind of key, because I think sometimes we were talking about it earlier in our little green room about how sometimes we feel guilty when we put our family first and don't do our job kind of things, or we feel guilty that we have so much to do in our business that we don't take time out to spend time with our kids or our loved ones. So without further ado, Jessica, what is your take on taking a break without feeling guilty?
Well, I mean, look, I think that first of all, on the level of, so all of us on the show today are moms. And I think that that our grandmothers didn't take a break without feeling guilty, and that our moms didn't take a break without feeling guilty. And I think that that's kind of what we've been taught as well, to always feel like we need to be doing something else. And it's really interesting because, so really quick shameless plug, I have a book coming out October 10th, and
yay. It's called The Shine, by the way, since you're not going to say that part.
Shine, yes. And I got my advanced copy, and if I could show it to you, I would, without getting in trouble. But I'm not going to get in trouble today. So, we had a meeting with the other authors and everything a couple weeks ago, and I just kind of was listening, and a lot of people were. We had to go around and say like what we were working on, and everybody's talking about like these next new things that they're doing, the next big project, the next big blog post, the next big program, and it came to me and I was just kind of like, so I'm just continuing doing what I'm doing right now. And there was like that awkward silence. And it's like, because I think, so I'd read this article, which is what prompted this hot topic today, by a guy named Will Aylward, I think is his name. And the title of it is "There's More to Life Than Being Busy." And so I've just kind of taken this approach to busyness, which like I used to just run myself ragged, and I would be like that person that I'm working on the next thing and the next project. And I think that there's something to be said for moving forward. But if you're being busy for the sake of being busy, you might need to take a break. Because I agree with that quote. You know, we lose connection with one another when we're just in this constant push forward mode. Mm-hmm. And then we really can lose sense of ourselves too. Like we kind of are just in this go space. And even though we might have a break to meditate here and there, or we might have a break to take a deep breath, sometimes we need to really step back and be like, do I need to take on a whole bunch of anything else right now? And that's kind of what we were talking about too before the show, when I was like, I just want to be like Heather and get rid of all the things and take a big step back.
I still have some things, like I don't have, but yes, but that's the thing. Like, so when we were talking about this, like when this came up and we were talking in the green room about the taking the break and feeling guilty. Well, what was it? Not this, like this past Sunday, actually, I had actually decided, you know what, I'm just not going to do any work. Usually I go and I'll like go to the library or do whatever, and I'll work on something. But I was like, you know what, I'm just going to stay home. I'm going to take Sunday. I'm actually going to take the day I said I was going to take off. Mm-hmm. And it was weird because by the end of the day, like, I should be doing something. Right. No. Just sit back, just relax. And then I actually had to force myself to calm down. Yeah. Like, and it was one of those, it was such a weird, so by the end of the day, like I did end up doing stuff. I like batched soup. I did this, I did that. I, took a nap, which was great, by the way. And it was funny because when one of my girlfriends was asking, she's like, oh, what'd you do today? I'm like, nothing. I did nothing. And I'm absolutely okay with it.
People are uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
They really
are.
I
know I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we feel guilty. And then I think if in those, because I think of moments when people have told me that they've done nothing, I start feeling guilty about, like I get a little judgy about myself and about them, and then a little guilty. And then, it's interesting. I think we're just really uncomfortable with any kind of empty space.
Yeah.
But don't you think we kind of grew up that way because our parents and our grandparents never really, it was always do for everybody else, and we weren't ever allowed to do or give the appearance to do for ourselves. Like, take that moment to actually check in with yourself and relax a little bit. So don't you think that sometimes that's where a lot of our guilt comes from, is we think that we just have to keep doing something all the time, and we're not allowed to take the time for ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. And we live in a very kind of commercial world now, to where, especially with social media, we constantly see everybody doing the next thing and going to the next place, and you see all these programs and ideas in your face all the time. And so I think it's important, like if we're going to step back, we probably have to consider, if we're going to take a break, getting away from that social media a little bit, because it's so easy to get dragged down into that. And even if we're trying to take a break, then we see something and we're like, oh, I probably shouldn't be taking a break.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like with social media. So with my social media, I actually turn off all notifications. Like, unless I actually go into the app, it won't give me my notifications, because that's part of it. That was part of Sunday. Like I was reading whatever, and I was like, and I caught myself picking up my phone. I'm like, why am I picking up my phone when I'm reading? So I put my phone down, because it became that habit, because we're so used to, like you said, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And, you've launched something, and okay, now what's next?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you sit with that launch and how it went and analyze the launch or whatever, something like that, or just sit back and enjoy the fact that you just launched something. Enjoy the fact that you just took that time. You've got a business and you created that. We don't sit with that. We think that that's, oh, no, but I got to do this next thing. Okay, now my launch is done. Now I got to think of what I'm going to launch next. Why? Like, why do we have to be in such a go, go, go state all the time? And I think that's where it is. And then when we aren't in that go, go state, to not feel guilty. That's the biggest thing. Because yeah, we can not be in that go, go, go state, but then how, like, my mind was playing tricks with me on that Sunday going, no, you need to be doing this. Oh, you need to be doing that. So yeah, it's both ways, and it's very difficult. Like, I know for me, especially.
Yeah, because the ego wants to set in.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But I also think too, we're in such a place now where everything is so instantaneous, and people can't wait for anything. So like if you get, like if I take a day, let's say I did like Heather and took Sunday and it was my detox day from all social media, all anything, it was just me. And somebody messages me to ask me a question and I'm not instantly answering it, they're mad. You know, and then you feel bad because it was like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have taken that time for me because now I've just upset my client or I've just upset this person. You know, and but nobody, it's almost like none of us can wait anymore. We can't wait a few minutes to receive an answer. And I don't know if that's because of social media or just this environment that we're in general, or the combination of the two.
It's an instant. Well, look at our meals. Some of our meals are instant meals within a minute or two or whatever, as opposed to like, I just made a vegetarian chili and it took me hours because I'm like, I'm going to make this right. Let it sit. I'm going to make sure that whatever. But it's those things. It's that instant gratification that we can't, because of society and because of, the way, we're a commercialized, like Jess said, a commercialized society in the Western society where everything is instant. So they expect that. So when they don't instantly get that message back, they're like, oh, well, what did I do? Or who did I do? Like, even if you look at the apps, I was actually just talking to somebody about this, where some of the apps are literally, you can watch as they're typing to you. I'm like, why do I need to know that?
Right, exactly, right?
Why do I need a notification that you're typing to me?
Yes.
Like, I don't get that. I'm like, I don't need to know. If you read my message 10 minutes ago, okay, thank you for letting me know. Like, why? Like, I don't understand that. Sorry. That was one of the top, like, things that I literally just discussed yesterday. Like, I was like, going off the handle. I'm like, why? Why do I need to know this?
I agree. Oh my God, I so agree.
Crazy. It's crazy. I think it's a combination of a lot of those things, from our past, the type of society that we're in. But to even dig a little bit deeper, I had just put out an email yesterday and then finishing the email today, and about feeling like we're enough. And it's I think we stay super busy because and constantly moving on to the next thing, because I think that there's an underlying feeling a lot of times like we are not happy where we're at. We're not truly in that space of joy. Like, we may be glad, yeah, we just launched something, or we just did something new, we just wrote a book, we just did whatever, but we had this expectation that one little thing was going to bring us joy, but underneath we still don't have that joy. And so I think that, especially in that quote that you said, Donna, and it talked about losing that connection, we stay busy, I think, to numb ourselves because we don't have that connection anymore. And so I think that there's a little fear there about having to get to know ourselves a little better when we take that break. And there's a little scarcity mindset there that if we take a break, we're somehow not going to have the things that we need. And there's a lot of these little pieces, I think, that go on underneath the surface. But I think if we can get past that point of feeling guilty about taking the break, we might be able to start piecing together some of this other stuff. What do you guys think?
Well, and that goes along with what I was going to say too, Jessica, which was I don't think we love ourselves, and I don't think we like spending time. We don't know how to spend time with ourselves, and so I think once we which in turn means we don't know how to, we're constantly looking for happiness because we don't know what that happiness is. We think other things are going to bring us happiness and that we can't get it internally from ourselves. So I think once we start really taking that time and working through that ego and being able to sit down with ourselves and actually spend, and to start with, you can just start with take 5 minutes a day or 3 if you can't handle 5. You can gradually bring yourself up to finding you again, because until you find you, it's going to be hard to not feel guilty about spending all your time with everybody else or doing for everybody else. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
Well, I was going to say, and the other thing is too, is when we don't feel comfortable with ourselves, we're the only ones we can't run away from. Like,
right.
You are in your head, you are in your body, and you are the only person that you cannot get away from.
Right.
So if you're not comfortable being in that silence, being in that, downtime with you, then how can you ever think to bring somebody else into that, energy of you and yourself and your energy when you don't even like to be in your energy? And that's where that loss of connection is, because you're like, well, I don't want to be with me, so why would anyone else want to be with me? So then you're like, okay, so I'm going to retreat a bit more, and I'm just going to, like you said, stay busy to avoid my, my self-doubt, my self, worthiness and stuff like that. No, I'm worthy because I'm doing stuff.
Yeah.
So
I can tell you, I literally and figuratively can tell you the very first line in my story. All I can tell you is I was never a fan of elevators anyway. And so that's all I can say, but it's so synchronous.
Teaser.
I can't say anything else.
Teaser. Look at you giving teasers.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good, because now everybody's going to want to read the book.
Yes.
Right?
I wanted to read it before anyways, but now I just want to read it even more.
Shine-book.com to get your free notice of when it's coming out.
I've already done mine. I got my free gift too.
Yes, free gifts are always good. All right, ladies. So without further ado, I want to welcome our special guest today. Even though that was a really good topic, and we would love to hear from all of you guys that are watching, whether live or on the replay, how you feel about taking a break, and do you have guilt around that? Is it something that you've had to work on, or something that you have no problem and you can bottle up that non-guilt and give it to the rest of us? Let us know.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I want to welcome our special guest on the Breakthrough today. As I mentioned earlier, she's a social media influencer and a vegan lifestyle coach and blogger at Harmoniously Vegan. Everyone, please click that love button 1,000,000 times and welcome our special guest and our friend Betty Ann Tucker to the show today. Yay!
Yay. Hello.
Welcome. I am unmuting you. There you go. I am so excited that you're here today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yay. All right. So diving right in, how do you feel about the hot topic that we were talking about today? Are you able to take a break without guilt?
I think it's a great topic to talk about, especially like you said, Jessica, with moms nowadays. I mean, we do so much for everyone else that we forget to do stuff for ourselves. And when we do, we feel that guilt, like we should be doing something for someone else. So personally for me, that's something that I've struggled with in the past and still sometimes struggle with. But over the last 2 years, I'd say, I've spent a lot of time doing self-improvement and working on myself and reflecting, and I'm starting to struggle with it less, but it's challenging those conditioned beliefs and perspectives that we've had thrown at us and ingrained in us since we were young that we need to challenge and break away from.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing, when it's not a place where we don't really need to place blame or anything like that. We just have to choose to turn it around. And I love that that's going on a little bit with what we're going to be talking about with your story today, making those hard choices in our lives. So I'm excited about your topic today because I think that many people that are watching have felt, and I know that this can definitely be said for all of us that are on the show today too, we are pulled towards things that are considered outside of the norm in society norm, and it's really easy to start to feel pulled in that direction, maybe very different than your family and friends, maybe very different from the place where you live, and to feel very alone in this sort of changes and transitions that are happening in your life. So I'm really excited about getting to talk to you about this in your life today, because I think that it's going to help a lot of people, and if nothing else, to not feel like you're alone. So Betty Ann, take us back to a time when you were maybe just kind of going through the motions or doing everything that you thought you were supposed to be doing in your life. Take us back to before you kind of had your transition, and tell us a little bit about what life was like for you.
Okay, so I think the perfect time to start would be right after I had my son, because I had my son when I was very young. I was 20 when I had him, and I'm now 28, so 8 years ago. And after I had him, I didn't really have any direction, or I felt like I had no purpose, and I wasn't, aside from obviously taking care of my son. But I felt like I didn't really know what direction my life was going in, personally and professionally. And I felt at a loss. And right around the same time, my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And so not only was I now a new mother, I was also becoming a caretaker of my mother. And so I was putting a lot of myself into everyone else, and not really reflecting and not really getting to know who I was on a personal level and what I wanted out of life. And so that kind of, like I said, it left me lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. And so because of what we've been told our whole lives, and I'll get more into it basically in later on, but basically, you have to go to school, you have to have a job, you have to be married in order to be happy and be successful and be a good mother, and those sorts of beliefs were really what was surfacing at that time in my life. And so it drove me to look into going back to school so that I could have some sort of title or certification, or, felt like I had a purpose in my life. So I started studying fitness and nutrition. I've always had a passion for fitness and nutrition anyways. And so I thought that would be a good route for me to take. And then my mother's diagnosis really pushed me to that route. So I took that. I graduated from that 2 years after, and I became certified as a personal trainer. And at that time, my son was 3. So I felt like, he was at a good age where I could go back to work, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Because I felt like there was, again, that conditioned belief that, if I'm not going back to work, then what am I doing? Yes, I'm being a stay-at-home mom, but, there's some people that, judge people who stay at home. And then there's some people who judge moms for going back to work. So it was kind of trying to navigate through all of those outside beliefs and thoughts, like where I fit in. So I made the decision to go back to work as a personal trainer. And I worked at a gym for some time, but it didn't really align with what I felt and what I thought my life was going to be. So I left, and I went back to university because, again, I thought that's what I needed to do. Because everybody else and what I was getting from social media, the people that were surrounding me, and just the information that I was receiving at that time, that's what I thought I was supposed to be doing. So going along with the whole fitness and nutrition, I went into a Bachelor of Science for kinesiology. And I was in my second year when we found out that I was pregnant with my daughter, Isabel. And I was really ill during the pregnancy, so I couldn't continue to take my classes. And so I left. And I stayed home. Obviously, I had my daughter. And then I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. And yeah, around that time, my mother started to become really, really bad. Like her disease had progressed very rapidly, and she was admitted to the hospital here, awaiting a bed assignment at a care home. And this was difficult, not only because, I mean, it's my mom, of course, but she's young, like she's only 51 currently. Yeah. And so it was really like, it kind of tossed everyone for a loop, and you kind of start to question, how things are supposed to play out, and where your life is going. And at that point in time, I was struggling with mental health issues, and I went to go see my doctor, and I went to go see therapists. And it was really at that point, my therapist basically told me that, it was kind of a form of codependence. I was basing myself and my life in everyone else. And I had no clue who I was anymore. And because I was grieving essentially the loss of my mother, because she's no longer the person that she was before, and she will never be that person again. That really kind of like, it shook my whole world. And that was kind of the start of my inward reflection and the journey that I've been on for the last 2 years in finding myself and finding my purpose. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
It's a lot. It really is. And it was a difficult time because I was struggling with, again, societal views of what you should do when you have mental health issues, right? Because I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and should I take medication? Should I not take medication? Should I go the holistic route? Am I a failure because I have to take medication? How am I going to be helpful to other people if I'm in this state myself? And that's really when I started to learn that in order to actually help other people, I needed to take care of myself.
It's really, it's a lot. And like I mentioned in the start of the show, it's interesting because the last, the many episodes that we had leading up to this, we really were talking about one specific moment where like it was kind of like a wake up and things change. But the last couple of episodes, when we talked to Shoshana and we talked to Suzanne, and we were really talking about how things continue how sometimes it's more than just one moment, like it's a series of moments, or things continue to snowball and change. And so I think that's really important to point out, because I know a lot of people are waiting for their one thing to happen and their lives are going to change. It may take a series of things, for you to realize that things need to change in your life. How did people that were close to you during all of this change, when you kind of started to decide to do things differently, how did they respond to you? Like, what was the response of people around you?
I love what you said about how it's like sometimes it's not just an aha moment, it's more of a gradual thing. And that's kind of what it was for me. Like I did have this moment where it was like, okay, I started to question everything, all the information, all of my beliefs and perspectives, all of that. And I started to question that. And I think obviously the first person to notice was my husband, right? Because he's the closest person to me and my children. But he started to see a change in me. And the change was really starting to take effect when I decided to go vegan. Because that obviously challenges all of the norms that we're told and conditioned beliefs that we're told growing up, right? And so that's kind of really where it started. And my husband was actually very receptive to it because, of course, like I said, I have a background in fitness and nutrition. And before I started taking my medication, I really was looking into holistic routes to heal my body from within. And of course, one of the huge contributors to your mental health is what you eat. Of course, there's physical activity, but what you eat. And that's really what kind of propelled me forward into doing my research and how the food that we're eating affects us. And of course, there's, you know, the processed food and whatnot, but then you get into all of the peer-reviewed medical studies about meat and dairy and the rest of it, and how it can affect your health and your mental state. And so that's when I decided, okay, you know, I was dealing with mental health issues, but I was also dealing with hormonal imbalances. So I was like, you know, I'm gonna try this. It was not like I had this big aha moment, like a lot of people say, oh, I realized what was going on in factory farms and I decided to go vegan. Mine was more like, okay, I'm going to try and heal my body. And from that, it just, like you said, I learned more. And the more that I learned, the more that I realized that this was a path I was supposed to take. And yeah, my husband started experiencing health issues. And so he kind of started to come onto the journey with me. I think my close relatives, so like my in-laws, they really were a little confused at first, because it was almost like, my mother-in-law said to me, like, it was almost like overnight something had clicked and something had changed after I decided I was going to go vegan. It was like a whole new kind of me, I guess. And that may seem weird to some people by saying that, but honestly, the more that you learn and the more that you connect with who you are and how you connect with the things that you're bringing into your life, whether they're physical or whether they're a thought process, you really start to open up different doors and different pathways.
I'm really glad that you said that, though, about how it seemed to other people like it was overnight, because and in actuality, you know, we all know that we go through a process of many different things to get us where we are. And so that's been a little bit of because you and I have had this conversation about since we became vegan as well, but just how different my life is now compared to what it was before. And I've gotten the same comments. That's why I asked how people reacted, because I've gotten that exact same comment of, it's like you're a different person. It's like things changed overnight. Well, of course, that's how things, you know, we can't be the same people. We can't be engaged in the same things and surrounded with the same people and doing the same stuff we always did if we expect things to change. You know, we can't do that. And so it's really interesting that you got that same comment as well, because it drives me crazy, because I'm like, you have no idea the journey that we've taken to get to this point.
It is amazing, because there is such an inner journey to that point in your life. And I think too, it's because like once you actually make the decision to go vegan and you learn more about it, you're really challenging all of these beliefs that you've had throughout your whole life. And so the people that are around you who are also have these conditioned beliefs are all of a sudden like, whoa, what do you mean? Right? We have such a connection with our food, we don't even realize that throughout life we've held these beliefs even subconsciously. And that's kind of how we live our lives. So to challenge that and to open that up to other people, it can be very intimidating. It can be very scary. And a lot of the time you can be met with hostility or aggression, because it's like, what are you saying to me? Like, I don't understand anymore. It's turning your whole reality upside down, really.
Right, exactly. So would you say that through that process, because like with Jessica and you know, when you start making that change, that people don't understand because it's not within their belief systems. So they do tend to get sometimes kind of hostile, sometimes kind of vocal.
Yes.
But would you say too that you lost some people through that process?
I would, yeah, because of the fact that my belief system changed. I felt like I didn't align with a lot of the same people that I used to before, because energetically I opened up, or I kind of brought myself to a different frequency or vibration, if you will. If you're familiar with the law of attraction, you'll kind of understand what I mean there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wasn't really resonating with some of the people that I used to resonate with before, because my beliefs were different, because I was at a different season in my life. And so that was definitely difficult for me, but it was also difficult for them because they didn't really understand. And I felt like they were almost feeling the same way. They didn't really resonate with where I was at, and they weren't understanding with my thought process. And of course, like anybody who's vegan, you'll understand that when you first go vegan, all you want to do is share the knowledge. You learn so much, and you're just like, I just want to tell everything and to you, and that can be difficult as well, because like, when you're talking with people, not everyone is receptive, or they're not at that point where they want to be receptive to the information that you've learned. So it's difficult. You go through a process where you kind of have to almost grieve your past life and accept where you're at or where you're going.
Well, it is like a grieving. It is kind of like, I always tell people, it's like a death. I mean, everything you do, whether you move, you lose friends, you change careers, it's like a death. And so you have to go through that whole grieving process with all of that. We tend to think of a death as in an individual person that we love dying, but
Right.
so much is death. And we do. And I think too, when it comes to things like losing friendships or changing ourselves, because we had a death within ourselves, right? And we had to rebirth, right? So, you know, I think we sometimes think of death as it's an individual person over here, and we need to grieve that, and we don't grieve ourselves and the path that we're starting to take. Did you find that that was true for you, or?
Absolutely. And I didn't even really realize it until I actually started to go see someone, a psychologist. And she actually pointed that out to me, that, you know, when you start to kind of reflect and challenge certain beliefs, and you're growing, it's very uncomfortable, because it is a stage of growth, but it's also because your whole life is changing, and you're becoming a new person. It's difficult to let go of the person that you were, because it's so uncomfortable, and because you know that person so well that you don't want to let them go. But that also can keep you in a state where you're in like a constant cycle or a loop. You're not able to change, and you're not able to progress forward in your life, and you're stuck. And that's what I was feeling. I was feeling very stuck, because I wasn't, at the time, I wasn't letting go of who I was, and I wasn't ready to become who I was going to be.
So I have a question about when it came to the kids, because you at this point had both kids, right?
Yes.
And obviously bringing the whole family on board with this vegan, how did you adjust when we know kids go to birthday parties? We know that, you know, like that's one of the things that, because, you know, I'm vegetarian right now, and I'm obviously wanting to go vegan.
Yes.
I'm finding it difficult for my family, because it's the cheeses that we're used to. It's those little, like, you know, we've gotten rid of the milks, the ice cream, but it's, you go to a grocery store, and what are the first things you see? Is you see the dairy aisle, and it's all dairy. Now it's becoming, like, especially up here where I am, it's becoming more vegan friendly.
Yeah.
But the kids still go to birthday parties. They have pizza. They have all that stuff. Like, how do you adjust to that with your kids and with people around? And, you know, knowing your kids are still young, how do they adjust to this, you know, new lifestyle that they've got?
I think that's a great question, because it's a question that I actually get a lot. For me in the beginning, it was quite easy with my daughter, because she was so young, and because she was nursing. Like, she just stopped nursing a month ago. So she was almost 3 when she stopped nursing. And so it was very easy for her, because, I mean, I could give her what I wanted her to eat. And she didn't really have any idea of, like, all of this stuff that's been advertised to children.
Normal.
Yes. But my son, on the other hand, when we went, when I started to transition to vegan, he was 5, almost 6. And so he had already built that kind of base of, you know, love of ice cream and cheese and chicken nuggets and stuff like that, like, you know, the kid things. And it was difficult at the time, because he didn't really understand but I was very gentle with him because, of course, he is a child. And I was also very honest with him during the process. I didn't lie to him. And I kind of led him to that. I looked for a lot of substitutes in terms of foods that he was used to. So like, we try to steer clear a lot of the processed foods, but when we were eating out or when we were, having a treat meal or something, and he wanted chicken nuggets, we found substitutes like veggie nuggets, and we found substitutes for ice cream and cheeses and stuff like that. In the beginning, it was hard for birthday parties because you can't really control what they have. But I kind of developed a process where I would speak with the parents and ask what they're having, and let them know that we do have some dietary preferences or restrictions, some people say.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I don't really use restrictions because I don't feel restricted at all, but that's for another time. My son became like I said, I was honest with him, and once he started to learn more about why we were making the transition, and he was connecting with, okay, this isn't food, this is an animal. I like, this is what happens to these animals in order for them to get on my plate. And of course, I'm not like going to give him the gruesome details, but I'm going to be honest with him. Like, we're pretty open about death and stuff like that with our kids. And so he understood that, these animals were harmed and these animals had to die to get here. He kind of, it took him a while to make the connection instead of saying, this is bacon, this was a pig. And
Right.
when he got to that point, he actually started asking for vegan alternatives. And now it's actually wonderful now, because like, we'll go to places and he'll ask if it's vegan.
That's awesome.
Which makes me so happy, because
like proud mama moment.
yeah, it really is. But yeah, no, it's just, birthday parties can be difficult. Sometimes I send him with things, like I'll ask what they're having, and if they don't have anything that he can have, then I'll send him with things, or he'll eat before he goes, or I'll tell them we can go somewhere after the birthday party.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there's ways to navigate it, but it's of course specific to the individual and the individual family.
Well, because it's hard seeing even at school.
Yeah.
All these kids that have certain snacks that are the processed snacks or the whatever. Like, and I'd say, like, even with myself and my ex-husband, like, we eat different. I'm vegetarian, he's not. Like, so they get the meat over there, but then they come over here and it's like, okay, so I'm not trying to put my beliefs on them, but it's more of a, I'm just going to open up the gate for you and you make the decision on your own.
Right.
And
that's what I did for my son. But I think it's funny too, that a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're forcing your beliefs on them, because isn't that what we do when we're parents? Right. You raise your children based on the beliefs that you have.
Right.
And so it's no different between myself and somebody who does eat meat. That is your belief. That's what you've been raised to do and what you've been raised to believe is normal. And this is what I believe. Right, exactly. And so there's really no difference except for your belief and what you've been conditioned to do over your life. So, I mean, yeah, we do the best we can with the knowledge that we have as parents. And once you gain the knowledge, of course, you want to do the best that you know for your children. And that's what I believe the vegan lifestyle is the best choice for myself and my family.
I love all those are some really, really good tips too. And I mean, that we deal with that. We deal with that stuff too with the kids, and having to make the choices and it can be a fun time. It can be a fun time with the kids. But I found a lot of the same things as well, where they're starting to choose, they choose things on their own and they will ask questions, and it just becomes a way of life for them too. So with all of this change and everything that you have been through, and how do you find now, do things continue to change for you? Has like one thing led to another, and what does life look like going forward for Betty Ann?
I think once you start to make that connection, and once you start to make changes, I don't think it ever stops. You're constant now that, like, I'm open and receptive to the change, to changing, and to learning new things and so forth. There's things that are constantly moving, and you kind of get used to that feeling of being uncomfortable,
Mm.
so to speak, right? A lot of people are scared of change because it's uncomfortable. And so they shy away from it, but that leaves them in a spot where nothing ever changes. And so for me, it's just kind of after becoming vegan, it's, one thing has led to another. And in terms of like, I don't know, becoming less dependent on like material objects, for instance. We've kind of started to lean more towards and align ourselves more towards with like a minimalism lifestyle. And not that we're
Heather's on board.
not that we're minimalistic or anything, but we've evaluated what we have and our beliefs or our thought processes around those things. And we've kind of looked at it like, is it necessary? Does it bring value to our lives? Does those sorts of things, do we really need it? And if it doesn't serve some sort of functional purpose, or if it doesn't bring value into our lives, or if it's something that we can go without, then we do. Because we no longer look at it as a way of that item's bringing me joy. Like my happiness is dependent on that item. And that kind of came along with the whole change. I mean, honestly, it's just been a snowball effect, and you kind of evaluate your life and your beliefs, and you question everything after you start to open yourself up to change, and you realize that, a lot of how you live your life is based on the conditioned beliefs that you have from a young age. So.
I think that's awesome, and I encourage everybody to really take a listen to that part of Betty Ann's story, because when you do decide to start making changes in your life, things will continue to change, and that area of change can be really uncomfortable. That was my first ebook that I wrote a couple years ago now, was called Coping Through Change, because that was the first big realization that I had, as simple as it sounds, is that once you start making changes, things can continue to change. Go figure. So you would think that we would know these things, but then you suddenly have this moment of, oh God, everything's still changing. And so I invite you guys to share in the comments after the show as well, where are you experiencing changes in your life? Are you having trouble with moving forward with changes? And what does change look like in your life as well? Betty, thank you so much for being on with us today and sharing your story. And like I said, I think so many people are in a space where they're wanting to make change, but it can be really difficult when it's not the norm of people around you. And so I think so many people are going to benefit, whether you're trying to change your diet or you're simply trying to decide whether or not you should go with an amazing haircut like Betty has.
Thank you.
Because we talked about that too. I mean,
that's another thing too, like the whole conditioned belief on what we're supposed to look like, and like what's beautiful, and what's beautiful is different for every individual. But I had this belief like I should have long hair, and this piercing right here was like a big shock to a lot of people, especially because I have a lot of older relatives, and they're like, what is that in your nose? But I had to break away from that, traditional view of what other people think is beautiful, and really align myself with what I think is beautiful and what I resonate with.
I love that.
Awesome.
I love it. Oh my gosh. We can have a whole nother show on that next season, everybody. On the bracelet.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Betty. Everybody should connect with Betty. Her link to Harmoniously Vegan is in the description of the video, no matter where you're watching it. So make sure you click on that, give her some love over on that page. And thank you so much again, Betty, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So ladies, oh my gosh, so many, I think change is and choosing, like, it's different to have changes kind of happening naturally, but then when you choose to do something that is so outside of your comfort zone and outside of the comfort zone of everybody else around you, that can be a challenge. But I know, Donna, you don't do anything outside the box, so.
I don't think any of us do anything outside
No,
the box, do we?
no.
We're normal.
I follow the path.
Yeah, follow the path. You create your own path.
I am a path follower.
She's like, no, that ain't working.
I don't like paths.
We're all just cute little sheep.
Yeah, right.
But you know,
If the color of my wool is black, then yes, I will say.
but you know, it was funny because when I started going through a lot of my gradual part of my changes, because it's funny, have you guys ever experienced where in the beginning it was kind of gradual, but then there was that one thing that kind of tipped you over the edge?
Yeah, it's that
Right off
domino
the cliff.
effect. It's,
Yeah,
you know,
that was-
you start off with little dominoes and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
that big domino. And then that's when you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
wait, what just happened?
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the one that you're like, and that's also when I realized that I had to define words, not look in the dictionary and define the word, but define the word for me. Like, what is beautiful for me? What is abundance for me? Not what's the definition, not what does society tell you that.
What social media tells you.
Right. Right. It was like, what does it mean for me? And that for me was really hard because I was coming from this standpoint of I didn't even like myself, let alone how could anybody else like me? And then I didn't have a voice because I didn't want to speak, because every time I spoke, I got shot down or something physical was going on. So then you're giving me the power to say what's going to make me, what does happy mean for me? What does that look like? What is love? What does love look like? What is beauty? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Please don't make me define those because I don't know.
It can be overwhelming.
Yes. Yes. Very overwhelming. And then, so you're not only overwhelmed, but you're also trying to define it. And what I've discovered, and this is what I want people to really, really understand, is you're going to have a definition for those things, but it's also going to change as you energetically change.
Mm-hmm.
So what I thought was beautiful 5 years ago for me is completely different than what my definition is of it today.
Yep.
So,
And that's okay. Like that, I think we're so I think we can get, I know for me, I can get really worried about when I start to feel those changes and going, oh God, everybody's going to say like, I'm changing again. There goes Jessica again, right off the deep end.
Yeah, but what we have to understand is change means we're growing.
right.
If we don't change, nothing's growing. So like, if that seed we plant doesn't change, it means it's not growing.
Right. It's not blooming, right?
Yeah.
It's not leaving the earth. I mean, leaving this dirt.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, that's what I think we have to change our reality is without that change, nothing grows.
Right.
We don't grow. We don't grow as a society. Like
No.
we wouldn't, okay, listen, if we didn't have change, how many technology things would we not have right now?
Right. Good point.
That's so many things. We used to ride horses. Can you imagine riding a horse right now? I'm just saying, like, to where you need to go in the next thing. You can't do a horse through a drive-through kind of deal. Like, that's like,
Well, why not? I want to ride a horse.
because actually, I don't even know if it's legal. I don't even know if it's legal here anyways.
Oh my God, let me just tell you, hold on.
Oh God, I brought up.
Okay, because we are in the, I was feeling, I oftentimes here in the Bible Belt of Alabama feel like I stick out like the black sheep amongst the way. However, the other day I felt fabulous because I pulled out onto the main road, and this is a main road, you guys, with a lot of traffic. Girl was on the side of the road on a horse texting on her phone. I'm not kidding. I was feeling, and then I start thinking to myself, this has to be not as safe as texting and driving because that horse could go anywhere at any moment. she's texting and writing. What is going on here?
Oh
But,
my God,
but
that's awesome.
I felt really like, I felt normal in that moment.
That
Well,
was
see, then there's that whole definition of what is normal.
Oh yeah,
You
what is
know?
normal? Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, so we say, you know, we're afraid of change or we don't want to change our lifestyle or whatever. But whether we want to change or not, as a whole, we're changing.
Right.
So you're
Exactly.
either going to accept it and accept the fact that internally you need to change as well because beliefs, you know, what like I grew up in a Roman Catholic religion, you know, society.
Mm-hmm.
I don't practice that anymore.
Right.
So that's a change that I had to decide for myself. And I decided at actually a young age. So, but if I'd gone with society and, you know, done with what I was supposed to do,
Mm-hmm.
I'd still be practicing it, but that's not me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mhm.
5 year, like you were saying, Donna, about the 5 years from now, I can change again.
Mm-hmm.
5 years from that, I might change again and I might, you know, level up even more. But
Mm-hmm.
if I never accept that change and I never, you know, accept and purposely want to change, then I'm not going to grow and nobody's going to grow.
Right. Well, and the other thing too is our bodies change every 7 years. So every 7 years, we're a completely new body anyway. So
Wait,
whether
I'm not the
we-
same as I was when I was 21.
No.
What?
and
What are
it
you gonna do to
changes
yourself?
based on how we take care of ourselves too. That's something else that people need to understand. If you're constantly eating fast food and processed foods, and that's the dynamics that your body's taking on as
See,
well.
I can't do that. That's the
Okay.
good thing about my body, and I love it,
Yeah.
is that if I eat
I can't
too
either.
much unhealthy stuff, and unhealthy in my definition kind of deal,
Right.
then my body goes, no, sweetheart, no, this is not good. We're going to get rid of this somehow.
Yeah. Yes.
Whereas where I'm eating the, you know, the clean stuff, the non-processed or whatever, then my body's like, oh, thank you for this.
Right.
We're good.
And it's like a hug too. Don't you feel like it like hugs?
Yeah, you've got the
Because it's
energy, you've got the like
Yes.
your skin feels better, your hair feels
Yeah.
better. Oh yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge, and that like the vegan, it's what you put in your body. It really is.
Right.
And what
It
you
is.
do with
And-
that body.
And it talks to us because food also has an energetic vibe to it, and it also tells our body what it needs us to do. But what's really funny, and the reason why I asked you that about the hugging is because, you know, we just came out of a hurricane. And so we, up until Monday, couldn't get like fresh foods in here. So we had to I kind of had to eat not my normal food
Yeah.
at all. Nothing normal about it at all.
Mhm.
And so it was really funny because my husband, who eats the way I eat at home, but if he's out, he just eats however he wants to eat, which is fine. And but he looked at me last night and he goes, "Can we just have nothing but vegetables? I need vegetables."
That's awesome. That is
And I was
fantastic.
like, "Yes, we can." And so he went. We got some from the store. We realized that we finally got some there, right? So we're fixing it, and we get done eating, and he goes, "I felt like I was hugged." I said, "I know, right? Our vegetables were just hugging us."
That is awesome.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from this show is really about making those choices for yourself, guys, not for your neighbor, not for your friend, not for your family member. Make it for yourself, because
And
you are the one that has to be on your journey every day, not anybody else. And I think it's really important to understand that even when you make those choices, you are not alone. Trust me, there is somebody somewhere going through the same kind of thing where they feel alone in their stuff. And I want to leave you guys with a quote today that Betty had actually sent over by Owl from our green room. And it says,
Woo, I like the owl.
it says, sometimes we think we've been buried when we've really been planted. So I love that we were talking about, you know, being the seed and growing, and so know that these changes are natural and you can make them at any time you want, and don't worry so much about the other people, because there's somebody somewhere that understands what you're going through.
And
So-
reach out.
Yes.
I mean, that's the other key. Reach out and find those people that you can talk to, and don't try to deal with it internally by yourself. I mean, you need to deal with it for yourself, but you also need to reach out too, because that's what helps you grow as well. Sorry, Jessica.
No, absolutely. And because that's important, you can't, sometimes things will pop out at you, but if you're not seeing the kind of environment that you want to be in, if you don't have those people around you that can relate to you, go find them. Go find them. And it's not easy to put yourself out there, but if you want that support, it's there. You just have to choose to find it and take it.
And the other thing too is sometimes we can't see outside of our realm of ourselves, and other people can kind of give us questions to kind of help us look at it from different angles as well, to kind of see what direction we are trying to go into too. Right. So I think that's really key as well.
Absolutely. So we are at the end of our show, you guys. I want to thank Betty Ann Tucker for being our fabulous guest on our show today. And of course, our amazing panelist, Heather Clark, our declutter coach and consultant. And I, of course, want to thank all of you for being here with us, whether you've been here live or on the replay. I know I saw Siri out there today. I saw our friend Gwen out there today. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies. And I encourage you all to continue leaving comments and questions on the video so that we can continue the party after the show. So my name is Jessica Dugas, intuitive mentor and energy healer.
And I'm Donna Brown, holistic wellness practitioner, and this has been The Breakthrough. Join us next week when we will be joined by our guest, Tamia Montessori.
Yes.
Sorry if I demolished that.
No, it's good.
Is it good? Did I do good? Woohoo!
You did good.
Which she'll be sharing her breakthrough moment when she just gave up. Oh, I remember that. I had one of those too. And the divine experience she had as a result. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you next time. Bye for now, guys.
Bye, everybody.